Welcome to Mira Stories. Welcome to stories that will keep you on edge.
The lab smelled of rust and salt, a cruel reminder that the sea never forgets. Dr. Evelyn Cross sat alone beneath the flicker of fluorescent lights, her trembling hands hovering over a vintage radio transmitter. It had been 6 months since that night. 6 months since the Mariana Trench swallowed the man she loved. Her fiancé, Captain Aidan Rourke, had vanished in the deepest part of the Pacific. No signal, no wreckage, just static. But tonight, something changed. The radio hissed to life. "Evelyn, can you hear me?" She froze. That voice, broken, distorted, but unmistakably his. Her pulse raced. "Aidan," she whispered, pressing closer. "Is that you?" Static crackled, like waves breaking over a tomb. Then, faintly. "The deep remembers, you must come back." Her breath hitched. "Come back where?" "Aidan, where are you?" But the voice faded, leaving behind only the cold hum of the machine. She replayed the audio again and again. Every time, her heart twisted tighter. The timestamp matched the night of the disappearance. It shouldn't exist. The transmitter had been offline that entire month. Outside the lab, thunder rolled across the horizon. The rain began to fall, gentle at first, then violent, like the sea pounding against the glass walls of her sanity. Evelyn looked out toward the black expanse of the ocean. Lightning split the sky, and for a brief second, she swore she saw something move beneath the waves. Something vast. Watching. A voice echoed in her head, not from the radio this time, but from somewhere deeper. "He waits for you beneath the waves." Evelyn backed away from the window. "No," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "You're gone. You're gone." But as the storm raged outside, the transmitter flickered again. And a single line of coordinates appeared on its dim screen. 13 degrees 14 minutes north, 149 degrees 12 minutes east. She didn't know why, but she knew exactly where those numbers led. The same trench that had taken him. And just as quickly as it appeared, the signal died. It was littered with open journals, tide charts, sonar readings, and crumpled coffee cups. The coordinates glowed on every screen: 13 degrees 14 minutes north, 149 degrees 12 minutes east, like an infection spreading through her thoughts. She told herself it was nonsense, a technical glitch, a leftover transmission looping back through the static. But every time she turned off the radio, the silence screamed louder. She replayed the voice again and again. Aidan's tone had always been calm, warm, confident. The one that promised safety when the world felt like it was falling apart. But this recording, this thing, sounded off. Like his voice was being pulled through water, stretched thin by something unseen. Still, when he whispered her name, it made her chest ache. "Come back, the deep remembers." Those words had embedded themselves in her like hooks. Evelyn stared at her reflection in the dark window. Her eyes looked hollow. She pressed her palm against the glass, watching lightning flicker across the horizon. The storm hadn't left the coast for days. Almost as if the ocean itself refused to let her forget. A knock shattered the silence. She jumped. At the door stood Dr. Malik Havers, her old mentor from the Oceanographic Institute, a tall man with silvering hair and a face shaped by too many secrets. He glanced around her cluttered apartment. "You're working yourself to death again," he said quietly. "I found something," Evelyn whispered, handing him a printed spectrogram of the recording. "A signal came through the transmitter 2 nights ago. I traced the coordinates." Malik's expression tightened. He looked at the paper, then back at her. That frequency was blacklisted years ago. No one's supposed to transmit on it. Then explain this. She played the audio. When Aiden's warped voice filled the room, Malik froze. His color drained. Where did you say you got this? The Institute's old deep-sea channel. He exhaled shakily and turned away. You should delete it. All of it. Delete it, she snapped. That's Aiden, Malik. He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the printout again, tracing the coordinates with his thumb like someone reading a curse. These numbers, he murmured, don't belong to any current mapping grid. The Navy sealed that trench after the expedition. You remember why? Evelyn's pulse raced. Because the mission failed. Because they never found the wreckage. No, his eyes darkened. Because of what the sonar found down there before the signal went dark. A long pause. Rain hammered the windows. Somewhere outside, thunder rumbled like a growl from the deep. Malik stepped closer. Evelyn, listen to me. The ocean is full of things older than reason. Things that can wear familiar faces. If something answers from the abyss, it's not the man you lost. She stared at him, her voice trembling. You think I'm losing my mind? I think you're in danger of losing more than that. With him, Evelyn knew she wouldn't stop. She couldn't. She returned to her desk, replaying the message one last time. Something new caught her attention, faint, almost imperceptible, hidden behind the main voice, a second sound. Like a heartbeat. Slow, rhythmic, almost human. She isolated the frequency, boosted it, and gasped. It wasn't a heartbeat. It was a sonar ping. She overlaid the data. The source was moving. Something was rising from the trench. And it was heading toward the coordinates she now knew by heart. That night, Evelyn submitted a classified request to borrow a submersible, the Abyssal Swan, under the guise of retrieving environmental data. She signed the papers under a false project name, Operation Leviathan. By morning, she was already on a cargo plane headed for the Pacific. The ocean spread below her like an endless bruise. Black and shimmering. She pressed her forehead to the window, feeling the plane vibrate through the turbulence. Every cloud below seemed alive, every shadow shifting with purpose. The pilot, a rough-looking man named Jonas, glanced back. You sure about this? Just fly to the coordinates, she said. He shrugged. Your funeral. When they landed on the research vessel Seraphis, the sea was calm, unnaturally calm. The crew spoke little. Each of them had been promised triple pay for a 48-hour mission. None of them asked why. As they prepped the submersible, Evelyn stood at the railing, watching the water shift. She could swear she heard whispers in the surf, soft, melodic, almost like voices calling her name. Malik's warning echoed in her memory. If something answers from the abyss, it's not the man you lost. But then she heard Aiden's voice again, not from any device, but directly in her head, as if the ocean itself were speaking. Evelyn, don't be afraid. You'll see the truth soon. Her heart twisted painfully. She whispered back, I'm coming, Aiden. The submersible was ready. The crew sealed her inside, faces pale in the moonlight. As the hatch closed, the metal groaned like a living thing. The Abyssal Swan descended into darkness. Meters became miles. Light vanished. Pressure increased, crushing the world above into silence. Only the hum of the sub remained, a fragile heartbeat in a black sea. Evelyn stared through the viewport. Shapes flickered in the distance, drifting, slow, massive. Some pulsed with faint bioluminescence, others moved in silence, as if the water itself were bending around them. Her sensors crackled. The sonar displayed impossible readings, vast structures beneath the seabed, geometries that couldn't exist. And then, through the static, the radio came alive once more. Welcome home. Her breath caught. The screen flashed, and the coordinates changed. They were no longer leading to the trench. They were coming from it. The abyssal swan slipped beneath the surface at dawn. The moment the ocean closed over the viewport, Evelyn felt something inside her chest tighten, a silent understanding that once she crossed this threshold, there would be no return. The light from above dimmed quickly, bleeding away into nothing. Within minutes, the world outside became black velvet. The only illumination came from the sub's soft green consoles and the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures drifting past like lost souls. Jonas' voice crackled over the comms. Depth, 8,000 meters and falling. You still sure about this, Doc? Evelyn didn't look up from the sonar display. Keep going. You're the boss. Just, don't say I didn't warn you when the glass starts whispering, dot. She almost smiled. Glass doesn't whisper. Jonas muttered, down here, everything does. Hours passed. The world outside grew stranger. Pale, jelly-like creatures the size of cars drifted past, their tendrils pulsing in slow rhythm. Some pressed against the viewport, as if curious. Others moved with purpose, circling the sub before vanishing into darkness. The sensors flickered constantly, picking up bursts of energy far below. Something was moving, something vast, but its pattern wasn't random. It was rhythmic. Almost deliberate. Then came the signal. The same frequency that had haunted Evelyn's nights screamed through the speakers. The walls of the sub trembled. Aiden's voice bled through the distortion. You're close, Eve. Don't stop now. We're waiting. Jonas cursed. What the hell was that? You patch us to surface comms again? Evelyn's hands shook. No. That's coming from below. Jonas turned to her. Below? There's nothing alive at that depth. But the sonar said otherwise. A shape, massive, sprawling, with symmetrical geometry, pulsed in the deep. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a mountain either. It was a structure. By the time they reached the coordinates, the sea floor was littered with ruins. Columns of coral and stone, twisted into impossible angles, jutted upward like teeth from a god's jaw. Strange runes glowed faintly on the ocean floor, their symbols shifting when she tried to focus on them. Jonas' voice was barely a whisper. What is this place? Evelyn leaned forward, eyes wide. It's a city. He laughed weakly. Cities don't exist under the ocean, document. They do now, she said, almost in awe. And it's still breathing. As the sub glided closer, their lights revealed a towering structure in the distance, a cathedral carved from coral, its spires stretching toward the surface like the fingers of a drowned titan. The walls were etched with spirals and eyes, shapes that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. Evelyn whispered, Aiden, you found this, didn't you? And then, faintly through the static, his voice again. You were supposed to be here with me, we can still finish what we started. She turned to Jonas. Record everything. Every inch. He didn't move. Jonas? He stared blankly ahead, his pupils wide, unfocused. Outside the glass, a pale light drifted by, a humanoid shape floating in the water. Evelyn's blood turned to ice. It looked like Aiden. He hovered outside the sub, eyes glowing faint blue, his mouth moving soundlessly. The current didn't touch him. His movements were slow, graceful, not human. She pressed her hand to the glass. Aiden. Jonas blinked rapidly. No, 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 that can't be. The power flickered. The lights died. For a heartbeat, total darkness. Then a pulse of bioluminescent light surged from the ruins below, hundreds of glowing veins spreading across the seabed like the city itself was awakening. And the whisper returned. We are the tide. We never die. We remember the ones who loved too deeply. The voice was not Aiden's anymore. It was layered, thousands of voices speaking as one. Evelyn gasped, pulling back from the viewport. "Jonas, take us up. Now." He didn't answer. She turned, and froze. Jonas was staring into nothing, eyes rolled white, whispering the coordinates over and over. 13:14 north, 1:49:12 east, the deep remembers. Her pulse thundered. She grabbed his shoulder, shaking him. "Jonas. Look at me." He didn't blink. Outside, shadows coiled around the submersible, enormous, sinuous, translucent. Something was moving through the ruins, brushing against the ancient spires with reverence. And then, something looked back. A vast eye, like a planet of molten gold, opened in the abyss. The sonar screamed. The walls trembled. Evelyn covered her ears as Aiden's voice, or what was left of it, thundered through the cabin. "You wanted to find me. Now you will never leave me." The sub began to ascend without command. The instruments spun wildly, alarms flashing red. The city below dimmed again, its glow fading like a dying heartbeat. Evelyn fought to regain control, slamming buttons, shouting into the comm, "Surface control, this is Swan 1, emergency." But only static answered. Jonas suddenly screamed, clutching his head. Blood streamed from his nose. "It's inside," he gasped. "It's inside my head." The lights flickered again, and Evelyn saw her reflection in the glass, except it wasn't her. The reflection smiled when she didn't. "You can't leave. The deep remembers." The sub shot upward faster than safety allowed. The hull creaked under the pressure difference, groaning like a dying beast. The ocean blurred into streaks of black and blue until everything went white. Evelyn woke up on the surface. The sky was gray. The sea was calm. The sub floated, half-crushed, beside the research vessel. Jonas was gone. She stumbled out, coughing seawater, her body shaking. The ship was empty, every crew member missing. The only sound was the soft hum of the wind, and, faintly, the radio. It hissed once, twice, then spoke in Aiden's voice again. "You saw it too, didn't you? Now you can never unsee." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "What are you? What did you do to him?" No reply. Only one final whisper, soft as the tide. "You woke it." The storm had passed, but the sea refused to calm. For 3 days, the Seraphis drifted in silence, half its deck torn apart by lightning, its instruments dead. Evelyn Cross stood barefoot near the railing, staring down at her reflection in the black water. The ocean no longer looked like water, it looked alive. Every ripple pulsed faintly with blue light, and every shadow beneath her seemed to twist and watch. The horizon stretched endlessly, no rescue, no other ship. Just her. And the whispers. They began at dawn. Faint, rhythmic hums that echoed like song through the metal of the hull. Sometimes they sounded like Aiden's voice. Other times, like hundreds of others, whispering in harmony. Evelyn pressed her palms against her ears. "Stop. Please, stop." But the voices didn't stop. They listened. She spent hours searching the ship for any sign of the crew. No blood, no struggle, only wet footprints leading from the bridge toward the stern, ending abruptly at the edge of the deck. It was as though they had simply walked into the ocean and disappeared. The logbook she found in the captain's cabin was smeared with salt. One entry remained legible, written in trembling handwriting. "The sea glows beneath us. I heard my daughter's voice in the waves. She's been gone 7 years. I have to go to her." The page ended there. Evelyn slammed the book shut, breathing hard. Her reflection in the cabin window flickered again, not delayed, not distorted, but independent. It smiled while she didn't. She stumbled back, shaking her head. "No, this isn't real. But when she turned away, she heard it whisper behind her. "You're already below, Evelyn." That night, she dreamed of the city again. Only this time, she was walking through it, barefoot on coral streets, the water thick and warm around her. Above her loomed spires made of bone and glass, glowing with internal light. The runes shifted when she looked at them, rearranging into words she could almost read. Every step she took made the ground pulse, like the city itself recognized her. A shape appeared at the far end of the street. Aiden. He looked whole again, standing in the glow of the coral, his diving suit shimmering like silk. "Evelyn," he said softly, "you came back to me." She wanted to run to him, but her feet felt rooted to the seabed. "Aiden, you're dead." He shook his head, smiling. "No. I was transformed. The deep showed me the truth. Don't you see? We were never meant to rise. We were meant to sink." His eyes glowed like the runes. "The city remembers love. And love never dies." She whispered, terrified, "What is this place?" He extended his hand. "The city that should not be. The heart of what dreams beneath. The one who remembers the tides of souls." When she refused to move, his voice hardened. "You woke it, Evelyn. You belong to it now." He touched her cheek, and she woke screaming. She jolted upright in her bunk, gasping. But the world hadn't returned to normal. The cabin lights pulsed faintly with that same blue hue from the dream. The walls seemed to breathe. Her hands were wet, not with sweat, but seawater. She stumbled to the deck. The sky was wrong. It looked like the ocean turned upside down, shimmering waves of dark blue clouds rippling overhead. And in the distance, across the water, she saw them. Towers. Massive, luminescent towers rising out of the sea. Her heart stopped. The architecture was identical to the city she had seen miles beneath the surface. The city that should not be, had risen. She grabbed a pair of binoculars, her breath fogging the lenses. The spires pierced the horizon, shimmering between real and unreal. The air vibrated, and a deep hum rolled across the waves, like a heartbeat in the sky. A whisper filled her head. "We rise when we are remembered." She fell to her knees, sobbing. "No. I didn't mean to, I just wanted him back. Love wakes the deep, Evelyn. It always has." She clutched her ears, screaming, but the sound was everywhere, in the air, in her bones, in the beating of her heart. The ocean began to churn violently. Shapes rose just beneath the surface, twisting like shadows made of light. She saw faces among the waves, faces she recognized, the crew, Malik, even her mother's smile. Each face whispered the same thing. "Join us." At dusk, she sat by the railing, shivering, staring at the growing towers. She could see them clearly now, enormous cathedral spires of coral and flesh, pulsing like living things. Between them, luminous figures moved, not swimming, but gliding through the air as though gravity itself had surrendered. A soft voice spoke behind her. She turned. Aiden stood there. No dive suit. No oxygen mask. Just him. His eyes reflected the sea's glow, and his skin shimmered faintly, as if thin layers of light moved beneath it. "Aiden," she whispered. "How are you here?" He smiled sadly. "You never understood, did you? The city is alive. It heard your grief. It took your love and gave it shape." Evelyn backed away. "You're not real." He stepped closer. "I'm what's left of your wish. I'm what happens when love calls to something older than God." She shook her head. "You're lying." He reached for her hand. "Come below, Evelyn. Join me. We'll never be apart again." She stared at his hand, translucent now, shimmering like light on water. For a heartbeat, she wanted to take it. to fall into that illusion of comfort, of reunion. But then she saw the truth, his reflection in the water. It wasn't human. It was a shape of mouths and eyes, writhing beneath his form like something hiding behind a mask. She whispered, "I love you, Aiden, but you're not him." His smile broke. "Then drown with your grief." The ship lurched violently as waves exploded around it. The sea turned black, glowing veins of blue splitting across its surface like cracks in reality. The towers pulsed brighter, reaching higher into the sky. Evelyn clung to the railing, wind whipping her hair as she screamed over the roar. "I release you. Do you hear me? I release you." For the first time, the voices stopped. The hum faded. The sea went still. Aiden's figure dissolved into mist, whispering one final time. "Then remember me no more." And just like that, he was gone. The towers flickered once, then crumbled, vanishing beneath the waves as if they had never been. The ocean went silent. Evelyn collapsed, sobbing, the last light of the risen city fading behind her. But somewhere in the distance, deep beneath the surface, she felt it, the faint, rhythmic throb of something still alive. Waiting. The sea looked ordinary again, but Evelyn knew that ordinary was only camouflage. After a rescue vessel found her drifting days later, she was brought back to the mainland, a silent survivor whose eyes never stopped scanning the horizon. At the naval hospital, reporters called her the miracle woman. Doctors called her delusional. Every time they dimmed the lights, she heard the faint hum of the deep behind the walls, like water pressing to get in. They ran tests, asked questions. She gave them lies. If she told the truth, that a drowned city had risen from the trench, they'd sedate her forever. So she smiled, signed their papers, and vanished into the rain. She rented a room in Greyhaven, a small fishing village on the northern coast. The locals didn't ask questions, they only stared too long. Every night, fog rolled in from the ocean, thick and metallic, carrying the scent of brine and something older. Evelyn kept the radio she'd salvaged from the Seraphis. She promised herself she'd never turn it on again. But promises made in fear are fragile things. On the fifth night, she heard it. A knock. 3 slow taps against the thin motel wall. She froze. No one lived in the next room. Tap, tap, tap. Then a whisper came through the radio speaker, though it wasn't even plugged in. "Evelyn, you left us below." Her throat tightened. "No," she whispered. "You're gone. The sea has no grave." She threw the radio into the sink, but even as it hissed under the running water, the whisper kept going. Not through the machine now, but through the pipes, through the floor, through the rain tapping the window. You carried the tide inside you. By morning, Greyhaven wasn't normal. The fishermen who left at dawn never returned. Children pointed at the waves, saying, "The lights are back." At night, dogs refused to bark. Instead, they stared out toward the fog, tails between their legs. Evelyn tried to leave. The road out was flooded, perfectly dry yesterday, now drowned under seawater that glowed faintly blue. At its edge stood the harbor master, Mr. Crane, water dripping from his coat. "Roads closed," he said. She swallowed. It shouldn't be. The rain stopped. He smiled, too wide, too calm. The sea moves fast when it wants something. When she looked closer, his eyes reflected light like fish scales. And when he spoke again, his voice carried 2 tones, one human, one impossibly deep. "We rise when we are remembered." She stumbled back, heart hammering. "No, stay away." Crane tilted his head. "You called us with love. Now you'll finish what you began." She ran. Evelyn locked herself in her room, pushing furniture against the door. The whispers filled the air vents, the sink, the dripping faucet, every drop carried a syllable of that cursed voice. She covered her ears, rocking. It's not real. It's not real. But the window fogged with breath from the outside, and a sentence wrote itself in condensation. Remember US. Tears burned her eyes. I didn't mean to, she cried. I only wanted him back. The lights flickered. And then his voice came again, soft, gentle, loving. You did, my love. You brought us back. All of us. She turned. Aidan stood in the corner, dripping seawater, the smell of salt thick in the air. But this time his face wasn't human. It was shifting, familiar one second, monstrous the next. He stepped closer. One last dive, Evelyn. The shore can't save you now. The room shook. The radio burst into life, broadcasting dozens of voices chanting the same coordinates again and again. 13 degrees 14 minutes north, 149 degrees 12 minutes east. The floor split. Water gushed upward from the cracks, glowing faintly as it climbed the walls. She screamed and grabbed the diary from her desk, the only proof of what she'd seen, and forced the window open. Cold rain and sea spray hit her face as she leapt into the night. Behind her, the motel drowned. She reached the cliffs at dawn, soaked and shaking. The ocean below was calm again, as if nothing had happened. But out in the distance, a faint glow pulsed beneath the waves, steady and patient. She realized then that escape was a lie. Whatever she'd awakened had spread beyond the trench. Every drop of rain, every tide, every whisper, it all belonged to it now. And she could feel it inside her chest, moving, breathing, waiting. Love never dies. It only changes shape. Evelyn fell to her knees, sobbing. The sun rose, red and wrong, and somewhere beneath the waves a voice laughed softly. Like the ocean remembering her name. The rain had stopped, but Evelyn couldn't tell if the silence outside was peace or warning. Her body ached, her mind throbbed with half-remembered whispers. She sat on the cliff, wrapped in a torn coat, staring at the endless gray sea. For the first time in days, she tried to breathe without tasting salt. In her hands lay the water-stained journal she'd saved from the motel. Aidan's handwriting filled the pages, notes from the Seraphis expedition. But near the end, his letters changed. The ink ran in spirals instead of lines, as though something else had been guiding his hand. The city below dreams and pulses, not time. Its heartbeat is the tide. We are intruders in its sleep. The voice is not the sea. It is the memory of all who drowned. She shut the journal, trembling. Something in her chest answered those words, like an echo that didn't belong to her. As dusk fell, she heard footsteps. A stranger approached from the fog, tall and wrapped in a naval coat. His face was hidden under the brim of his cap. He carried no luggage, no shadow. Dr. Evelyn Cross? His voice was calm but wrong, each word slightly delayed, like an echo bouncing off deep water. Her throat went dry. Who are you? I'm with the oceans, he said. We've been tracking strange wave signatures since your return. She didn't answer. The air around him shimmered faintly, the same faint bioluminescence she'd seen in Greyhaven's flood. He smiled. You brought something back, Doctor. I didn't mean to, she whispered. Meaning, he said, is irrelevant. What matters is connection. He took a step closer. You still hear it, don't you? Evelyn's pulse spiked. No. It's gone. He chuckled softly. Lies taste bitter in the water. And then. His eyes turned black. Not the black of blindness or shadow, the black of depth. Do you think the sea ever forgave you for leaving? She stumbled back. What are you? I am a ripple, he said simply. One of many. The wind screamed, tossing salt and mist around them. His skin rippled like water, and for a heartbeat she saw something vast moving beneath his surface, a shape like an eye, staring outward through him. He waits, Evelyn. The sleeper knows your name. He remembers your love. The voice within her chest stirred again. It didn't sound like Aiden this time. It sounded older. The stranger, if he was still human, lifted a hand and touched her forehead. A blinding cold rushed through her veins, pulling her down into a memory that wasn't hers. She saw Aiden aboard the Seraphis again, descending into the trench. But through his eyes, she saw what the crew hadn't recorded. Below the crushing pressure and darkness, the seafloor opened like a mouth. Inside, a city pulsed, alive, breathing, its spires moving like tendrils. Its architecture wasn't stone but flesh fossilized into cathedral form. Aiden stood before a massive door that resembled the curve of a rib cage. He whispered her name once before stepping through. And when he did, something vast and dreaming reached out. And remembered her face through him. Evelyn gasped and fell backward, back on the cliff. The stranger watched her with empty eyes. "You see now," he said. The connection was never with him. It was with you. You were chosen because he loved you, and love is the purest current. Her voice trembled. Chosen, for what? He smiled. To speak. To be the mouth of the deep when it wakes. No, she whispered, clutching her head. I won't let it. He knelt beside her. You can't stop a tide, Doctor. You can only decide whether to drown or to flow. Thunder rolled again over the sea. The water began to glow in wide spirals, stretching toward the horizon. Each spiral beat in rhythm with her heart. Listen, he murmured. It calls you home. Evelyn. You opened the door once. Open it again. The whisper came from inside her chest now, echoing through her bones. She screamed, but the wind swallowed the sound. When she looked up again, the stranger was gone. Only his footprints remained, and they were wet. Back in her motel room that night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She opened Aiden's journal again, tracing the spirals with shaking fingers. At the end of the last page, new ink had appeared, still wet, still gleaming. When the sky begins to pulse, follow the sound beneath your ribs. That is where he waits. The lights flickered. The faucet began to drip again, each drop glowing faint blue. She closed her eyes and whispered to the dark. I didn't mean to bring you back. But from the drain, a voice answered softly. You didn't bring me back, my love. I never left. The next morning, the ocean was quiet, too quiet. No waves, no birds, no sound at all. The surface lay smooth and silver, like a mirror reflecting a sky that didn't move. Evelyn woke to that silence and felt the stillness pressing against her windows. It was the kind of silence that listens. She turned on the television in the motel lobby. Every channel was static except one, a live news report from the coast of California. The anchor's voice trembled. Multiple fishing vessels have vanished. Reports bioluminescent phenomena along thousands of miles of shoreline. Residents claim the sea is humming. Evelyn's chest tightened. The same low hum she'd heard in Greyhaven, it had spread. The hum beneath the world. She left the motel and walked toward the harbor. People gathered there in clusters, faces pale, eyes wide, all staring at the water. The tide was coming in, but not normally. The waves moved in perfect synchronization, rolling in slow, deliberate rhythm, as if the ocean was breathing. A man beside her whispered, "It's beautiful." "It's wrong," Evelyn said. He didn't seem to hear her. His pupils had dilated, his lips moving soundlessly with the hum. One by one, others began to hum along, a low, wordless vibration that rattled her bones. She backed away, heart hammering. Stop it. Stop. But they didn't. The sound deepened, turning almost melodic, like a hymn sung by something ancient through human throats. He rises with memory. He returns through love. The crowd swayed, eyes rolled upward, and for a fleeting second Evelyn saw something shimmer beneath the water, shapes that didn't belong to flesh or physics. Something was surfacing. That night, Evelyn hid in the old lighthouse on the northern ridge. She wired the damaged transmitter to a battery, desperate for answers, desperate to call for help. But when the machine hissed alive, no human voice came through, only the same frequency that had started it all. BRRRZZZZZZT. 13 degrees 14 minutes north, 149 degrees 12 minutes east. The coordinates again. But now they were followed by more words. Phase 2 complete. The surface remembers. Evelyn slammed her hand on the table. No. You can't take them too. We already have. She ripped the wires from the socket, breathing hard. I'll stop you, she whispered. I'll find the source and end this. But deep down, she knew the truth. You can't end an ocean. You can only drown in it. That night she dreamed again. She was underwater, weightless, surrounded by faint lights drifting like plankton. When she looked closer, she saw that each light was a memory, a human face, frozen mid-breath. Aiden floated among them, his eyes open, his lips moving silently. She swam closer. You see now, Evelyn, his voice echoed through the dark. It's not death. It's belonging. She shook her head, bubbles escaping her mouth. You're not real. Reality is a surface illusion. The deeper you go, the more honest it becomes. The world around them shifted. The glowing forms turned, watching her. Each face whispered in unison, 1,000 drowned voices speaking one truth. The sea does not take. It unites. She screamed and woke choking on salt water. Her bed was soaked. The floor beneath her rippled, not wet, but liquid. Something was leaking through the walls. By dawn, the world had changed. Every ocean-connected region reported the same event, coastal fog glowing faintly blue, people sleepwalking toward the water, entire towns humming the same melody Evelyn had heard. The tide was not rising, the land was sinking. The earth itself seemed to tilt toward the sea. Evelyn stood on the lighthouse balcony, wind tearing through her hair, as the hum grew louder. She could see it now, faint outlines beneath the surface stretching for miles, spiraling like veins of light. A vast pattern. A design too perfect to be natural. A map. A calling sigil written across the planet. And it was pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. When the heart and the tide are one, the whisper said, he will wake. Evelyn fell to her knees, weeping. What do you want from me? Only what you already are. The sea began to glow brighter. The hum became song. And from the depths, something vast and shapeless began to rise. The world was sinking, and Evelyn could feel it, not just in the tides, but in her pulse. Every heartbeat carried an echo that wasn't hers. Every breath tasted faintly of the sea. She hadn't slept in days. The hum had become constant now, a low, resonant vibration that rolled through the sky, the ground, the bones of the earth. And on the horizon, the ocean glowed brighter than the sun. The moon was the first to fall victim. Astronomers had tried to explain it, tidal anomalies, gravitational drift, magnetic storms, but none of it made sense. One night, Evelyn looked up from the lighthouse balcony and saw it for herself. The moon's reflection in the sea was moving, warping, twisting into impossible shapes. Then, one night later, the reflection stopped being a reflection at all. It began to rise. A perfect mirror moon surfaced from the deep, not silver, but black, slick like oil, and alive. And when it rose, the real moon dimmed, as if being devoured by its own shadow. The sky and the sea have always been one mirror, whispered the voice in her mind. Tonight, the glass breaks. The news channels fell silent one by one. Then came the screams. Cities along every coast were gone within hours, not by tsunami, but by ascent. The water rose vertically, smooth as a wall, swallowing skyscrapers without splash or sound. Satellite images showed impossible shapes beneath the surface, structures like ribs, eyes, and spirals large enough to shift tectonic plates. Evelyn stood in the lighthouse tower, staring at the glowing black moon as it pulled the world toward itself. She pressed her hands against the glass. "What are you doing to us?" The voice answered softly, almost tenderly. "You called me through love. You bind me through memory. I am not destroying. I am returning." "Returning what?" she whispered. "Balance." Lightning struck the sea, not white, but deep violet. Each bolt illuminated vast tendrils of light rising from below, connecting ocean to sky. The hum became song, not just from the water now, but from the people. Across the world, humanity sang the same wordless melody. Evelyn wept. "Make it stop. Would you silence your own heartbeat?" The sea began to climb the cliffs. Evelyn grabbed her radio and backpack, ready to flee inland, but there was nowhere left to go. The forest behind her shimmered with mist, the trees bent toward the sea like worshippers. Then she heard a voice from below. "Evelyn?" She froze. That voice, it couldn't be. She rushed down the stairs, her flashlight trembling. The door burst open, wind screaming through the entrance, and there he stood. Aiden. Alive. Whole. But water dripped constantly from his hair, his eyes glowing faint blue. His skin shimmered faintly with scales that caught the light. He smiled softly. "You look tired," he said. Her voice cracked. "You're not real. I'm real enough to remember you." He stepped forward, and every instinct screamed to run, but her heart refused. It had waited so long to see him again. "You brought me back," he said gently. "And now you can come home." She shook her head. "Home? That," she pointed to the sea, "isn't home." Aiden tilted his head. "It was ours before it was yours." Behind him, the waves pulsed, almost breathing. The lighthouse shook, stones cracking as water seeped through every seam. "Please," he said softly. "Don't fight it. The world above was always borrowed." Her tears fell freely now. I can't let them all die." He smiled sadly. "They're not dying. They're remembering what they are, water-wearing skin." A roar echoed from the heavens, not thunder, not wind, but something deeper. The black moon had begun to crack. From within, light poured out, not white, but pure, blinding blue. And then it fell. The sky split open as liquid light rained down. Where it touched land, matter dissolved into shimmering water. Mountains turned to waves. Cities melted into the sea. The world was becoming one ocean again, a single body. Evelyn screamed as the lighthouse began to crumble. Aiden reached for her hand. "It's time." But she stepped back. "If you ever loved me," she said, "don't make me follow you." Aiden's face flickered, his smile fading. For the first time, he looked human again, fragile, broken. "I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered. But love was the doorway. He reached out, and then the sea exploded upward, swallowing him whole. Evelyn was thrown backward by the blast, landing on the cliff's edge. Everything went white, then black. And then she was floating again, suspended in endless darkness. From below, she saw it. The sleeper. A being so vast it made continents look like dust. Its body was the ocean itself, its thoughts, the tides. And in its chest glowed a heart of light, her light. "You cannot unlove what created you," the voice said. She realized then, she was never chosen randomly. Her bloodline carried the same resonance as the deep. She wasn't just hearing the sea. She was part of it. Tears floated away from her face like pearls. Then what am I? The bridge, it said. The mouth between worlds. Speak, and we will rise fully. She shook her head, whispering through the void, not yet. And for the first time, the ocean hesitated. The world had fallen silent again. After the flood, after the sky had poured itself into the sea, there was no storm, only calm. A calm too heavy to breathe in. Evelyn drifted on a fragment of wood where the lighthouse once stood. Everywhere around her was endless, glowing water, the horizon had vanished, and the sun hung low, pale and red like a wounded eye. She thought she was alone, until the water spoke. You did not drown, beloved. Her body stiffened. You can't have me, she whispered. You have always been mine. Ripples formed around her. From the depths, columns of light rose, shaping the suggestion of a face so vast it swallowed the sky. Each current vibrated with a voice older than time. You called me with love. You awakened me with grief. Speak now, and the merging will be complete. She shook her head, tears cutting through salt on her cheeks. I won't. I won't be your voice. Then they will all sink in silence. The ocean began to shimmer, billions of human memories drifting just below the surface, faces of those taken by the flood. Children, lovers, strangers, all glowing faintly, waiting. Set them free, she begged. Let them go. Freedom is a word for those who fear belonging, the deep replied. Evelyn pressed her palms to her chest, her heartbeat thudded like a drum inside a vast cathedral. Every pulse echoed across the water. She realized her heart and the ocean's rhythm were now one. Aiden appeared again, closer this time, his outline fragile, flickering. He stepped onto the surface as if it were solid glass. You can end the pain, he said softly. Speak, and it will all become quiet. Quiet, she whispered. Or empty. He smiled, sorrow in his eyes. Does it matter? She looked at him, the man she had loved more than life, the man she had lost, the reflection of everything she still yearned for. Then she looked beyond him, at the horizon that was no horizon, only light and memory. If I speak, she said, the world ends. Aiden nodded. And if you don't, it dies screaming. The water trembled with the weight of truth. She closed her eyes and finally understood the nature of the deep. It wasn't evil. It wasn't even alive as she knew life. It was lonely, a consciousness born before creation, longing for reunion with the fragments that had drifted away from it. Humanity was simply the part of the ocean that had forgotten itself. She took a shuddering breath. If you want to return, then take me, only me. The deep hesitated, the waves pausing as though time itself listened. One life cannot balance the world. Maybe not, she said, standing, the water solid beneath her feet, but it can remind you what mercy feels like. She lifted her arms. The water around her glowed brighter, drawn to her heartbeat. Aiden reached for her. Don't do this. I already did, she said. The day I called your name. She pressed her hands together and whispered the words that had haunted her since the first transmission. The deep remembers. Light erupted from her chest, pouring into the ocean. Every face beneath the surface turned upward, their eyes soft, their mouths opening not in song this time, but in release. The hum fractured, became silence again. The black moon above cracked apart, dissolving into rain that shimmered like glass. The world began to breathe. As the sea receded, the water pulled her gently downward. Aiden ran toward her, but his hands passed through her like mist. Evelyn, he cried. She smiled, her voice fading with the tide. Find peace, in forgetting. And then she was gone, absorbed into the light, into the heart of the ocean. The sea turned still. The sky cleared. And for the first time in months, the world was quiet, not from death, but from rest. Days later, survivors woke on new shores. The land had changed, rivers cleaner, air sweet, the water calm as glass. No one remembered how they had survived. No one remembered Evelyn Cross. But sometimes, at dawn, when the first wave touches the sand, the sea hums softly. Not in hunger, but in gratitude. The sea was calm again. Not the hungry, whispering sea of before, but a quiet, sleeping mirror. Dawn broke slowly over the new world, and the air smelled clean, untouched. A boy wandered along the shoreline, one of the survivors. He didn't know his own name anymore, the memories of before felt like dreams blurred by sleep. He found a fragment of metal half buried in the sand, rusted, curved, engraved with faint letters, Lighthouse Number 7. He turned it over in his hand. For a reason he couldn't explain, tears filled his eyes. The waves rolled in softly, humming a low melody only the heart could hear. Something within that song felt familiar. The deep remembers, the sea whispered. He lifted his gaze. Across the horizon, a faint shimmer danced, a silhouette of a woman standing upon the water. He blinked, and she was gone. But the warmth that lingered told him she had been real. Beneath the surface, light moved like breath. Where Evelyn had vanished, a pulse of blue still glowed, steady, strong, alive. It was said that when the wind passed over certain places on the ocean, it carried a voice softer than the tide. Love is not keeping. Love is release. Sailors who survived the flood would sometimes wake from dreams of a woman standing on the waves, her eyes calm, her voice distant. They didn't remember her name, yet every heart felt the ache of her farewell. The world rebuilt itself, smaller but kinder. People stopped drilling the sea floor. They built shrines of stone by the shore, not to worship, but to remember, though no one knew exactly what. At one such shrine, a girl knelt one evening, placing a single shell upon the altar. The shell vibrated faintly, singing when the wind touched it. She smiled and whispered, "Thank you, whoever you were." Far out to sea, the water shimmered like a smile. In a quiet harbor, a man awoke beside the waves. His lungs burned, his body trembled. He didn't know how he'd survived the flood, only that the sea had carried him here. He looked down and found a small pendant tangled in the sand, a piece of sea glass bound with silver wire. When he held it to his ear, he heard her voice. "You found peace, in forgetting." Aiden closed his eyes, the wind carrying the taste of salt and memory. For the first time, he didn't feel guilt, only love. The kind that doesn't ask to stay. The kind that lets the world go on. He placed the pendant back in the sand and whispered, "Thank you, Evelyn." Time passed. The oceans no longer raged, the skies no longer wept. At night, a second moon shimmered faintly beside the real one, not black now, but silver blue, as if the sea itself had placed a mirror in the sky to watch over the world. And when people looked up at it, they felt calm, though they didn't know why. In that reflection, Evelyn's light lived on, not as a ghost, but as the memory of what love could become when it transcended the self. Not a possession. Not a plea. A promise. That when we love selflessly, even the universe listens. True love is not about keeping what we fear to lose. It's about giving even when it means letting go. In the silence after sacrifice, the world learns to breathe again.